Good morning, everyone. This is Pastor Brad. I'm glad to be able to share with you a little bit today, a little short devotion here this morning. Do you remember that old song, children's song, He's Still Working on Me? I love that little song, and I promise I'm not going to sing it for you today, but that's what I want to talk to you about. God's still working on me. You see, when we get saved, that's not the end of the story. That's really just the beginning. When we get saved, our eternal destiny changes from hell to heaven, and we love Jesus and serve Him, but that's just the beginning. It's not just about getting saved and going to heaven. It's about getting saved and surrendering and submitting our lives to God for Him to work in our life to make us into the people that He wants us to be. So I thought about that, and I was kind of contemplating what we could learn from that thought from God, because He is the great builder. You know, if you're going to build something, you've got to have several different aspects of building. First of all, you've got to have a builder. Next, you've got to have materials to work with. Another thing that always works well is a plan. You've got to have a plan. Something else it takes to build something is time. It takes work and time. And that was the last thing, work. So you've got to have a builder, materials, plan, time, and work. And there may be a few other things, but those are the ones that I want to talk about this morning. First of all, when we get saved, God wants to build us into men and women and make us into the image of Jesus Christ. He wants to get all the filth, all the mess out of our lives and put in wonderful things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, faithfulness. God wants to put all of those things and make us into the people that He wants us to be. So the truth is, after we've been saved a while, we should be different people than when we first got saved, if we've allowed God. The difference between, say, building a house and God building us is that we have a choice. We can say, no, I don't want God to make me into anything. I don't want God to get sin out of my life. I don't want to be a different person. I'm happy with who I am. Well, you know what? I've been saved 48 years, I believe it is, and God's done a lot of good work in my life, but I'm not finished. He's still working on me. So when we look at this, we realize that God, of course, is the builder. God starts building us, working on us through His Word, through prayer, through the circumstances of life that we go through. And yes, God does use the circumstances of life. I believe this coronavirus that we're all dealing with right now, God wants to use it to make us into people of great faith and great trust in Him. He wants to weed out some things. You know, when we first get saved, depending on how we were living before we got saved, there's a lot of things. You know, if we were involved in all kinds of sin, God definitely wants to get that sin out of our life. Matter of fact, He commands it. We've got to let go and let God get rid of all those things that we were doing. And there's a lot of things that I normally call the big, bad, ugly sins of the world, and they are certainly, they go pretty quick. If we are determined and serious, you know, if we're involved in sexual immorality, if we're involved in all kind of addictions in this world, if we're involved in hate, sometimes some of these big sins, they go pretty quick. And it's easy for us to come to a place where we think, wow, man, I've come so far. I don't do this anymore. I don't do that anymore. I'm not addicted to this anymore. God set me free from that. And it's easy for us to come to a place where we say, my goodness, I've arrived. You know, I'm everything God wants me to be. But in all of us, there can be things deep inside that we're not even aware of. Sometimes we have bitterness. Sometimes we have unforgiveness. Sometimes we are still holding on. It may not be so obvious, but we're still holding on to something in our life that we don't want to let go of. And you know, for example, forgiveness is something that God is certainly tremendously interested in our life. And it's hard sometimes. Some of the things I've seen people go through, it would be so hard to forgive. But God says we must forgive. We've got to forgive as God forgave us. And we've got to go to God in prayer and say, Lord, You're the builder. So I want You to take my life, and I want You to do in me, get rid of everything. Help make me more and more like Jesus. Again, another part of having a building is materials. We're the material. We just come to God and say, God, here I am. Work in my life. Be the master builder. Be the architect that makes me into the person, God, that you want me to be. And then we've got to have a plan. You know, we can have our own plan, but that may not match up with God's plan. So we need to come before the Lord and say, God, thy will be done. God has a plan for your life, a good plan. He wants to make you into a man or woman of God, a man or woman of faith. He wants to make you into a godly person. He wants to make you into a loving person, a kind person. God's got a plan, and He wants us to do His will and His plan. And then time. You know, we don't get saved one day and then we're everything God wants us to be the next. Like I said, God's been working on me for a long time, and He'll work on you and I for the rest of our lives, as long as we are willing and submit to Him. So it takes time. Be patient with yourself. Don't use patience as an excuse to continue living in sin, but be patient. Realize that God's going to work on normally one thing at a time. There may be times He's working on several, but you know, take where you are right now and say, God, work on me and show me what's in my life that you'd like to get rid of. And then it takes work. Work is just all the things that we face in life. You know what? There's no accidents. I believe God's working with us, and when the devil comes and brings trouble into our lives, God will turn it around and use it for good. And part of that good, much of that good, is molding us and shaping us into the people that God wants us to be. So what I want to do today is just say, keep letting God work on you. If you're not aware of anything that needs to change in your life, just ask God, Lord, show me the things in my life that need to change. Am I bitter? Am I unforgiving? Do I speak words of death? Am I harsh with my tongue and my words? God, help me. And the main thing is to say, God, I surrender and I submit my life to you. Isn't that wonderful? God can make us into something much better than we can make ourselves into. So God bless you. I hope this has helped you and will encourage you, and understand that in the middle of the process, we serve a wonderful, loving God who's full of grace and mercy. God bless you and have a great, great day.